All right, gang, so today we're going to begin our unit on economic geography, and we're going to address, first of all, the SOLs that we're going to look at, and then I'll tell you what this lesson is going to be about. So this unit on economic geography, one of the primary things that we're going to do is we're going to identify what natural, human, and capital resources are and talk about why they're important, how that impacts economic activity and how we use our land. We are going to then look at how different countries use their resources as in regards to their economic decisions. Then we're going to look at how resources and economics economics impact a country's development and the standard of living and the quality of life in an area. And lastly but not leastly, we're going to look at how countries are interconnected. We're going to look at global patterns and networks of economic interdependence. Basically, that's a fancy way of saying globalization. Why do we trade with each other? What's the purpose? What's the point? Why do we do that? And we're going to look at things that influence economic activities. We're going to look at the concepts of comparative advantage and its relationship to international trade, and ways that economic and interactions and social interactions have changed over time. That one's actually pretty easy. And then lastly, we're going to look at economic unions and why those are a good thing sometimes and a bad thing. Okay? So the very first thing we have to do is we've got to define what economics is. And so what I want you guys to do is I want you to think about what is economics. Most people consider economics having something to do with money, and that's pretty accurate. But from our perspective, economics is the science or the study that analyzes the production of stuff, where the stuff goes, and who consumes the stuff. That's what goods and services are, is stuff. All right? So who makes it, how does it get where it's going, and who consumes it? Okay? And so that's what economics is. Another way to think about it, or another aspect to add to this, is that the things that are produced, the stuff that is produced, and by whom it is produced, so the people who make it, really depend on a country's resources. And there are three categories of resources. We're only going to talk about one today, and we'll talk about the others in another lesson. The first one is going to be natural resources. And natural resources include energy resources. Okay. The second one are humans. You and me, we are human resources. What are those? And last but not leastly, capital resources. And we'll look at what capital resources are as well. So we're going to begin to get today's discussion by talking about natural resources and what natural resources are. So the first question I've got for you is, what is a natural resource? On page 63 in your notes, this is where you're keeping this if you're following along for my classes. But a natural resource is anything that occurs naturally that's useful. It's any resource that happens without humans making it that's useful to us. It's anything that we can take out of the earth or off of the earth or from within the earth, and it's good for us. And we can use it to eat, we can use it to make other things with, and we can use it to make our lives better in one way or another. So let's think of some examples. Things that are natural resources. Our trees are natural resources. Coal is a natural resource. Rocks and the minerals that are within those rocks that we can pull out and extract through various methods are all natural resources. Okay? Things that are not natural resources are things that are naturally occurring but aren't terribly useful. Dirt and soil can be, when combined, if it's fertile. Otherwise, it's not very useful to us. Grass that you see growing in your yard is not terribly useful for us. So I wouldn't consider that a natural resource. Now, you do need good fertile earth to grow stuff, but it has to be good fertile soil. Otherwise, it's not a natural resource. If you're in the Sahara, it's not a natural resource. The grass can be a resource in terms of feeding cattle, feeding sheep, feeding other livestock, but otherwise it's not a natural resource. So there are several types of natural resources that we'll break them down into. First is a renewable resource. And a renewable resource is any resource that you use and it comes back. It comes back within a reasonable expanse of time, within your lifetime, multiple times over. The second type is a non-renewable resource. Non-renewable resources are those resources that once you use them, they are gone. And once they're gone, you're never going to get them back, like I said, within a reasonable amount of time. Renewable resources, examples of renewable resources are like trees, and anything else that you can grow. Plants are renewable resources. Non-renewable resources are oil, petroleum, precious metals are non-renewable resources. Things that once we use them, they're gone. And last but not least, a third type of resource is called an inexhaustible resource. An inexhaustible resource is any resource that once we use it, it's gone. So some questions revolving around resources. So why are they so important to us? Why are natural resources a vital part of world trade and how we as countries are connected with each other? Well, the reason for that is that some countries have stuff and others don't. And those that don't have natural resources are going to be the ones that want them and the ones that use them. Everybody uses oil or petroleum, for example, but not everybody has it. Or most people use oil or petroleum, but not everybody has it, so we have to trade for it to get it. So what makes them valuable? It's their scarcity or their rarity that makes natural resources valuable, and it's the fact that natural resources are unequally distributed all around the world that makes them valuable. Again, some places have things, some others don't, and that's what makes them valuable. So the first thing we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about energy resources. So I want you to think about what do wood, kerosene, lamp oil, and even gasoline all have in common. So think about that for a second. They burn, right? If you set them on fire, they're going to cause a big poof, boom. Some of them are. Wood's not going to poof up, but if you light gas, it will. So they all burn. Those are all examples of energy resources. An energy resource is any resource that's a potential source of energy. That's all an energy resource is. Okay, so first example of an energy resource that we'll talk about is wood. Wood is an energy resource that's readily available in most parts of the world, and it is used particularly in developing countries, countries that are not very nice, that I would argue that you would not live in if you had the choice. For example, if you're in the United States and you move to a developing country, your lifestyle is going to change dramatically, chances are. So wood is used in developing countries. The problem with using wood as a natural resource or an energy resource is that it causes deforestation. Now, you guys are probably thinking, well, I burn wood in my house. Well, you could be right. And I grew up personally burning wood in my house to keep my house warm too. But that's not our primary source of energy in the country. Okay, that may be used to heat many homes, but it's not used to heat most homes. And it's certainly not used to provide electricity for us. A second type of resource, speaking of electricity, that is often used to create electricity in developed countries like the United States is coal. Coal is a resource that, when taken to power plants, is burned to create electricity. It, however, has seen decreased use in developed countries, or nice, what I would categorize as nice countries where you would probably want to live if you would choose. So decreased use in developed countries is what it had. The problems with coal and why it's had decreased use is that its burning does lead to acid rain. Pollution and burning it is one of the big negatives, and it also creates environmental degradation when you are mining it. It's bad for the environment when you mine it. It can give miners black lung, and so there are lots of problems with it. And last but not least, it also competes with oil, which is not as big of an issue in terms of the negatives, but it does create some problems. Now, you can burn coal cleanly. You can burn coal cleanly. They've developed methods to do that. However, you still have to mine it, and the methods of extracting coal out of the earth still cause a lot of pollution and a lot of environmental degradation. Okay? Petroleum is a resource that has also a widely and commonly used natural resource, an energy resource. Petroleum is vital to our transportation. Petroleum is what provides gasoline for our cars. It's what provides fuel for our jets. It's what provides diesel for our trucks that haul stuff, and trains that haul stuff all around the country, and boats that move stuff all around the country. So petroleum is vital for transportation. But like coal, its burning and exhaust can lead to acid rain. And also like coal, it is a non-renewable resource. So once it's gone forever. And even the extraction, depending on the method of extraction, can be dangerous for the environment or bad for the environment as well. The current oil boom or petroleum boom in the United States has a lot of conflict centered around the environmental degradation that has occurred, or it could possibly occur because of it. Okay. Nextly, we've got nuclear power. Nuclear power is a source of energy that provides electricity to homes that is relatively clean burning and creates little pollution in the creation of energy. But the big negative is that the waste from nuclear power is very dangerous. You can't just have it sitting out beside you. If you burn coal, you're going to have a problem breathing it, but once it's burned, it's burned. It's gone, and so you don't really have to worry about it. Same thing with wood, and really the same thing with petroleum. With nuclear energy, the resources that are used there create very dangerous waste, and when you do get rid of it, and you do throw it away somewhere, it's really hard to avoid polluting the area that's around it. It can cause a lot of contamination. Some examples of areas that have been contaminated by either a nuclear power plant where they are no longer cool and they overheat and therefore they essentially explode are 3 Mile Island in the United States, Chernobyl an example in the Ukraine, the former Soviet Union had a meltdown and they had to move out the entire town basically, and the whole city is shut down. And last but not least, and more recently, Fukushima power plant in Japan is an example of a place where they had a nuclear meltdown and had some contamination issues around that. Now, it's not all bad in terms of the energy resources. Solar and wind power are two examples of energy resources that are inexhaustible. They will never go away, and there's some good things to this. We get solar power by creating and erecting these big solar panels. Those solar panels absorb the sun's heat, converts it into energy, can pipe it into electricity for our homes so we can use it to heat our homes, etc. And the same thing for the wind turbines. Wind turbines, the wind blow, they push the turbines convert that pushing into mechanical energy, and hey, there we go, we've got electricity. And so those are some of the good things about those. So the good thing is it's clean. It doesn't create any waste. Like nuclear energy, it doesn't create any waste in its consumption of energy. Well, solar and wind power also, there's nothing to throw away, so they're also clean there. So that's an advantage to it. Now, the production of the solar panels and the wind turbines does create negatives, and we'll talk about those in a second. So another positive is that the sun ain't never going away. Okay, the sun's not going away for a very, very long time, and so it's an inexhaustible source of energy. And same thing for the wind. The wind's not going to go away. As long as we've got the sun, we've also got wind, and it's not going to go away for a very long time. Negatives, like I said earlier, the production of things can be a little expensive and can produce waste. Right now in the United States, that's the #1 negative to these things, is that they are very expensive. It's expensive to produce the solar panels. It's expensive to harvest the sun's energy and convert it into electricity for us, and the same thing for the wind turbine. Okay, another negative is that it's also these things also compete with coal, and so you've also often got competing interests, particularly in Pennsylvania and West Virginia, that argue and kind of fight with each other over what's the best source of energy or power. And last but not least, solar panels and wind turbines are bad for aesthetics, and what that means is that they're simply not pretty. While they are clean, they are inexhaustible sources of energy, the extraction of them is not very good looking. So if you've got a mountainside full of trees or a mountainside full of wind turbines and solar panels, you're probably going to want to look at the mountainside full of trees. Okay, well, that's our discussion on natural resources. Tomorrow we're going to talk about, or in the next lesson, next video I make, we're going to talk about two other types of resources, and those are human resources and capital resources. Have a great day. Bye-bye.